Military action would certainly be an option. Is it inevitable? Nothing's inevitable. It would be great if something else could be worked out. We would have to look at all of the details, all of the facts.
That is the President of the United States not taking military action against North Korea off the table, especially as we understand there's going to be another rocket launch to commemorate Kim Jong-un's, so whatever is his grandfather's founding of that horrible country. Dr. Rick Saccone is a Pennsylvania state rep. He also has spent years in the military, written 9 books, including 2 on North Korea, including the titled Negotiating with North Korea and Living with the Enemy Inside North Korea. Rick, welcome back.
Hey, Brian, good to be on your show. I'm a big fan of yours.
Oh, thank you very much. But you know your perspective on North Korea as much. You've written books about what you've seen. From what you know, how uncharted is the path that we're on right now?
Well, unfortunately, we've been on an uncharted path for about 65 years now. We've kind of been doing the same thing over and over. Now, President Trump I applaud him for negotiating from a position of strength. That is a good way to approach North Korea. But that doesn't solve the problem, and unless we want to go to war with them, and believe me, I'm a military guy. If America wants to go to war, I'll be the first to sign up. If they'll take an old guy with a bum knee, I'll go right back. But I think Americans don't really want to go to war with North Korea. They'd like us to find a solution short of war that doesn't compromise our values. So I'm hoping that Mr. Tillerson there is negotiating behind the scenes and starting to work with North Korea to come to a conclusion to this and finally resolve this issue.
Yeah, but I mean, what kind of why should we be optimistic that talks are going to yield anything? Because our follow through isn't great, and they do not have any, and they're not staying true to their deal.
Well, you know, that's been the history, and Brian, I've always felt that it's because we've really talked past each other for the past 65 years. We've never really negotiated with them. Now, the year I was there on the nuclear power plant project inside there working, we weren't able to work with the North Koreans. We did find a path to deal with them in certain situations. It's a very narrow path, but there is a path, and I don't feel as a country we've been following that path. But I still think there's a way for us to resolve some of the issues, at least start to resolve some of those issues with North Korea and get them, at this point, to, if not freeze their program, to at least for the time to sit down and talk with us. There's a way to do that, but I'm not sure we're actually doing that right now because we're not hearing from our Secretary of State.
Well, do you think
the military part of it.
I know we're not. And by the way, people just think that China has the key to this. Are you under the agreement, Dr. Rick Saccone, that China holds the key?
China can play a part, but remember, they're not our friend, and they're going to do what's in their interest, not what's in our interest, unless those two coincide some way. So you can't count on China to help us. They're not really going to help us. They'll play us if they can. They've had a history of doing that, but I'm not saying we should count them out,
right.
But we shouldn't rely on them. We have to go ahead and, you know, one of the big problems is we don't have any direct relations with North Korea. We get all of our information from third parties. We rely on third countries to tell us what's going on there. At least the year that I was on the ground there, we had at least a conduit to know what's going on inside North Korea. So we should, I feel like the very first step is to offer to have someone on the ground, whether it's a liaison office, whether it's somebody there to engage them and develop the relationships. I wrote 2 books about why that's important, but it's not something you can do in a soundbite, but there are important reasons why we should do that.
Here's what Richard Haas said about the sanctions, that we're trying to ratchet up even more and get China to stop even selling oil to them. Let's listen.
I think the history of sanctions, Willie, shows that won't work. There'll always be outliers who will get in there. There's black markets, there's gray markets. North Korea also is the most closed society in the world. They're willing to have their people starve if need be. So sanctions aren't the answer.
Do you agree? If sanctions aren't the answer, and if talks have yielded nothing, what will get their attention?
Yeah, so sanctions, we haven't had a history of sanctions really working because of all the violations that have happened. The backdoor groups, just like he just talked about, the black market and so forth. So even with all the sanctions we've had for decades on them, it hasn't produced results. I really believe what will produce results is a couple of the main issues that they want to do is they want to talk with the United States directly. Now, we've never done that before because our allies didn't like that for a number of reasons, which I've written about. But even offering to, and we don't have a peace treaty with them, we have an armistice. So even offering to sit down and talk about those things would cause them to pause, because that's something they've always wanted. They've wanted that for decades, and we've never offered that. It's always been off the table. So there are a number of things like that that we could offer to talk about, not to actually give in on. I'm just saying to talk about with them that would cause them to come to the table with us.
Well, I mean, just the thing is, whatever deal we cut, when we go back to the table, since they can't be verified, they're going to be stronger and have even more leverage. And there's a theory that they want to be, since they would be, they want to hold South Korea hostage and get us out of there in turn for not blowing South Korea up with nuclear weapons. Do you buy that?
Well, that's their talking point, but there are things we can do with them that we can verify. If we stay strong, we're coming from a position of strength now. We didn't do that before under a previous president. So there's things we can do and verify. You got to take tiny steps with them because remember we got 65 histories of not only a bad relationship. It would be bad enough if we didn't have a relationship with them. We have a bad relationship with them, so it's even harder to start. So you got to start with tiny things to get those yeses, to get the yeses going, so that we can get to the bigger things. So we haven't even started that point yet. So I think that's the starting point for us. If you want, as a country, to try to resolve this short of war. If you want to go to war, then that's a whole different subject. We can talk about that with General Mattis, and we can figure out what we want to do. But if you want to find a way, as a country, to solve this short of war, I think there is a path. It's narrow, but there is a path.
And it'll end up one-on-one with them. I'm not sure Japan and South Korea would embrace that. We'll see. Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate your perspective. Dr. Rick Saccone, appreciate your time. Thanks for your service.
Thank you, Brian.